We are live. It is Friday. Bring it in with me, Jarod, Hector, and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, sir?
Jarod, I would like to wish you a early happy Halloween. I am in the spirit of it. I am dressed as an adult today, which is not typically what I choose to do here in this semi-pandemic. Well, in Florida, they act like it's not a pandemic. So I used to love the holiday. Now it's just my wife and I. But happy Halloween nonetheless.
Well, thank you, sir. Halloween, my least favorite of all holidays. And it's probably because I grew up in a religious household, right? So like that's probably a major reason why I hate Halloween to this day, even though now I kind of view religion as this problematic thing, which, we're not going to get into on this show. A couple great places we're going to start. But before we get to Joakim Noah Day and all that excitement, Coach Thorpe, you had a proud papa moment last night. Max Thorpe, who was on the Florida State men's basketball team, played in his first game after a redshirt season. How did that make you feel?
Yeah, unfortunately, it was because it's an exhibition. It wasn't on TV or even radio. And I was tracking it online, but it was terrible. I used to do this a long time ago before everything was streamed, and it's very hard to track a game through comments in a website. And his high school coach, his last year, texted me and said, "Hey, Max just got in. His stream was better than mine, whatever he was following." Dude, I don't want to cry. I know how hard my son has had to work. I know the curveballs that life gave him, both from being short for most of his life. Now he's super tall at 6'3", but that was all very late. And then a severely fractured ankle, which 8 pins in his. Just, I know the pain he went through the day it happened, and the surgery was just as bad. That dude worked and is the happiest kid in the world now. And I couldn't be any prouder for that.
Wonderful, wonderful moment for the Thorpe family. And, as a coach and a dad, these things, they hit you very specially. And so I want to dovetail that directly to Joakim Noah night in Chicago, a young man who you've known for a long time. You worked him out down in Florida there. That whole Florida team, to be quite honest, Corey Brewer, all of them, you have special memories with them. So what did Joakim Noah night in Chicago last night mean to you?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, they're announcing his name and he doesn't even stand up at first. The whole place is applauding him. That's so Joakim. If you know the history and the legend, he's really a legend in Florida, winning back-to-back championships. And I think the best team since the Alcindor years in UCLA with that team. He was always about we and us. Like I was telling you, he'd be your favorite player ever because of what he stood for. I listened to him in press conferences at the Final Four talk about the worst scholarship player on his team and how good the kid really was. One year he talked about a 6-year senior that played a little bit and when someone asked, "What do you think of your team?" he said, "It's not my team, it's Mossie's team." The guy's name was Adrian Moss. And I mean, the guy played 5 minutes a half, whatever, but he was the senior captain, whatever, medical redshirt, 6-year guy. He just gets it, man. So I'm watching this and I'm seeing, Luol Deng was there. Aaron Gray was there. Kirk Heinrich was on the video they played, and Taj Gibson. And I was there in Chicago a lot with those guys when Derrick Rose was a rookie. Very first day of practice, Derrick Rose arrived with sunglasses, and a lot of guys made fun of him for that. But Joe was that combination of unbelievable spirit. Well, I'll tell you this right in a minute. Because I want you to hear this, but he just was so competitive. In one of the articles about this night and about him, he talked about like they weren't going to beat Miami with talent. They had LeBron and Wade and Bosh, but he said, but we had our competitiveness. And I actually called my son this morning and said the exact same thing. I just left him a voice message on WhatsApp that like that is not to be ignored, that competitive part of it. I went to a practice once, Jarod, when he was a rookie. He was a freshman of Florida. And I went to practice, a bunch of NBA scouts. I was evaluating David Lee and Matt Walsh, who had been a parade All-American his senior of high school. And another guy named Anthony Roberson from Detroit, very good player. And they called him Peeps. And Joakim was a tornado on the court. He was a freshman. Brewer was there, Horford was both freshmen, and they both played a lot. Joakim didn't really play. And one of the Florida people told me a story that Billy Donovan started a little thing where every day someone got an award for just the hardest working player on the court, most energy. But Matt Walsh won it every day. And Matt played in the NBA for a minute. A couple games in Miami, had a nice career overseas. Now he owns the New Zealand Breakers.
No.
He's the majority owner over in New Zealand for the Australian Basketball League. So they renamed it the Matt Walsh Award. And sure enough, Joakim won it every day, and it wasn't even worth doing because he was everywhere and didn't even play. That's who he is. I won't go into all the stories. I have him just outworking everyone all the time. But the one thing I'll say is they had a player in their team that was a rotation player off the bench named Walter Hodge. To tell you how good that team was, Jarod, Walter Hodge ended up making the EuroLeague. And he was a bit player for the Gators. I mean, he was important, but not very important. And super, super serious player, training for in our case, a good job overseas, but it was the NBA draft for him. And he had a very stern look on his face, and I wanted him to lighten up. And so I kind of put my arms around and said, Walter, hey, what was it like playing with Joakim? And I had already trained Joakim, I knew. And Jarod, it was like someone touched his shoulder like it was an angel. He had this peaceful, he's a really lovely guy. He had a peaceful look on his face. He said, coach, he was South American, best teammate I ever had. and he didn't have to say the words. I saw it in his face. So that's what we need. When we talk about culture strategy for breakfast, that energy. I mean, Joakim was screaming at guys as a rookie. I may have said this on our show once before. He got suspended his rookie season, Jarod, and no one said why. The reason why is because he yelled at all the veterans on the team plane for getting drunk on the team plane after games. Meanwhile, they sucked. In fact, Scott got fired that year.
Yeah.
And he didn't understand how are we, he liked to party, trust me. But this was not the time. Like we're losing. And the veterans, some of them anyway, kind of got him a suspension fine. That's who he was, man. He was all about winning. And we need more of those guys in this league. We always need those guys, really, in every league. So yeah, it was emotional, and he was great. Yeah, great guy.
And it's it sort of came full circle for him, right? Because the current coach of the Chicago Bulls is Billy Donovan, of course, who was his head coach at Florida. So everybody of consequences in the building, right? And it's Thibodeau. It was the wonderful, right? Because they're playing the Knicks, a wonderful, wonderful time for Joe. When you mentioned something about competitiveness, and as someone who's been a coach, and I was on your fireside chat this week, which was lovely. Competitiveness, coach, is a skill, right? Like the ability to compete at an extremely high level, that is a skill. And super talented guys sometimes don't always have that, and there are points, particularly in, younger and prep, where guys who just compete harder will often beat out more talented guys. Now, that tends to not happen as much in the pros, just because we're talking about like the elite of the elite. But still, if you can combine great talent with elite competitiveness, well, then you get in Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant and all these amazing, right? That's how you get the best people of all time at what they do. And it's really a joy when we get to see that. Yeah.
I heard Zach Lowe was talking to Joe about how Billy Donovan really empowered him as a young player in college to do things like bring the ball up the floor and run. He ran their half-court offense, really. Their point guard was really more of a scoring guard, Torian Green. The front line was Brewer, Horford, Noah. Pretty good college front line. Brewer was the highest rated of three. He was a McDonald's All-American. Horford and Joakim less so in terms of status. And Billy was ahead of his game, ahead of his time. Now we see Jokic and even Nurkic in fact, they're typically European players, Adebayo in Miami. They're the fulcrum. And that's what Joe was in the early 2000s. I give Donovan credit for that. And it really helped Joakim. I mean, Joakim went from not playing as a freshman to the most outstanding player on the national championship team in the Final Four. That's huge growth. It doesn't come absent an incredible commitment to team. And I guess there's one other great story that everyone's writing about. His first day on campus, he gets to Gainesville. He goes into a gym. This is how the story is written. And he sees Brewer and Horford and Torian Green, the other of the 2004 class, hooping. And he's like, oh, yeah, you guys are my guys. And he immediately goes on the court and they start playing. And I think people imagine the Florida Gator practice court, which is a very nice court. And I think they're imagining that. But I know the real story. No, that was at the local college rec center called the Southwest Rec Center in Gainesville, where anyone could go play. And you didn't back then anyway, you didn't typically see Gator players playing pickup, but for whatever reason, their facility wasn't open. So they just went to go hoop with college kids who probably didn't even know who these guys were. This was day one on campus, except that they're all outrageously tall, 6'9" and 6'10". And but that love of the game, Jarod, when those three guys went to go work out for NBA teams, it was the 1-on-0 workout because they didn't have to work out. They were guaranteed top 10 picks for sure. Noah would have been number one had he gone on as a sophomore year, but tore his labrum his third year. I think that's why he dropped to 9th. I thought he should have been a top 5 in that draft anyway. And but they didn't have to work out against anyone. And there's a story that Horford was in Boston working out by himself. I may have told the story before. I'm an old man. I tell stories and I forget. And he heard a bunch of sneakers squeaking and balls bouncing on another court through a partition. So he asked his Celtics guys, and he's working out for the Celtics. He said, "What are they doing over there?" He's like, "Well, that's a different workout." He's like, "Well, why am I not with them?" And they said, "Well, you're a top 5 pick. Your agent would kill you if you worked out against anyone. We don't need to see it. We're just trying to get to know you and shoot with you, whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, fuck that, basically. I want to go play hoops." And so we did. And I told that to Corey Brewer because I read that story. I told the Corey, he's like, "I did the same thing, coach." And then I called his agent. He's like, "Yeah." He said, "I get really pissed. These guys didn't care." And I miss that about this game. I understand the politics and the strategery as to why you don't do that. I get that.
Right.
But I would tell you as a coach, I know you feel the same way. Give me that competitive dude that isn't afraid and to risk his position to show he can kick everyone's ass. It shows a swagger and a confidence that I happen to like and a competitiveness.
A real hooper. And I'm going to take you to sort of your raising winners hat over here. We know the tangible things that growing up in a household with a parent that is a professional athlete or coach, what that does. What do you think the intangible things are that growing up in the household with a parent that's a professional athlete or a coach? So thinking of obviously Joe, his dad was Joakim Noah, professional tennis player. Like what does that do for an athlete when they grow up in that kind of household?
Jarod, that's such an amazing question. There's a lot, but I think probably, and I could speak personally just because of my son, we just know how hard it is. We know. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're 7 feet tall. It does matter if you're 7 feet tall or 6 feet tall, because the 7-footer can work a little bit less. All right, there's just not many of them, but you just have to really work. You have to. You always can have excuses, and so as a great example for people like my son, and there's plenty. I mean, there's not that many. I wrote this on Facebook today. You know, there's 300 kids that'll play for a top 20 team this year and get on the court. As many people get struck by lightning as will play Division I top 20 college basketball this year. If you know you've got a party to go to at 6 o'clock and you haven't worked out yet and it's 3 o'clock, well, no matter what you're gonna do, you're gonna go get your workout in. Like you have to get that done. And if you don't, it bothers you all night. I've talked to amazing students who Judy, I bet would be similar if they just haven't got their work done. My brother Mike told me this. I said, "How'd you have so much fun in college being in med school after 2 years?" And he said, "Because all you dumbasses didn't finish your studying, went to go party in the back of your mind. It was fucking with you. I got my shit done. I made sure I got my stuff." But if you're right,
always get your shit done. Period.
There you go. Like you've got to get it done first, and then you can relax. And that's so important. And I think guys like Yannick, I watched him play tennis when I was a young guy. I think they're able to just teach them the blueprint. The mistake would be to make them do it. I didn't make my son do anything. Certainly once he was 12, 13, he could think for himself. You just let them know this is the path. You can choose to walk the path or not choose the path. Whereas many athletes don't even know what the path looks like. They don't really understand what that path looks like. And so I think as much as anything, in addition to the fact that if your dad's a pro tennis player and he's your real father, which means you got 50% of his genes more or less, it's a good start. I mean, eye color and hair color doesn't help so much, but some of the others like Joakim was a really talented athlete,
right,
who grew to be 7 feet tall. Like you almost have to not want to be a pro just because you're lazy, because as long as you're willing to work, you got a real shot when you're that athletic and coordinated. And then you may know this. He grew up on the Upper West Side. He grew up just west of Central Park, on the park. Like I heard stories when there were concerts, his friends would tell me when there were concerts in the park, like there was his backyard.
Yeah.
In a sense. So, but he would get on the subway and go hoop in the city. That's what he did. And I wish I could have done that. We didn't have that option. There's no subway where I live. Joakim was seeking out, and that was because his dad. Go play against men. Go play against the best players. There was nothing soft about that kid. They called him Silver Spoon. He said this to Zach. There was nothing silver spoonish about the way Joakim competed. Nothing.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
And no one went after LeBron like him. Like everyone's kind of afraid of LeBron. He's
not Joe.
On LeBron, man. All those Heat guys.
I appreciated that about him. I really did.
Yeah, I bet you did. Yeah.
Caleb, Hollywood is hell. That was the quote. Yeah, I love that.
There's a video, you may have seen it, where Bosch is arguing with Mario Chalmers, and Joakim has his head turned. He turns around and sees them arguing and gets in their face and starts clapping violently. He's like, yeah, I love that. Like, I'm a nice, decent human being, but this is war for 32 minutes, and
we're competing. Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. That hits me right here, man. As a coach.
Joe's one of the best at that. All right. Before we get back into basketball and what's currently happening in the league, for those of you who are, of course, loyal TrueHoop followers, Henry had piece part 17 come out today.
I think you're right.
About his latest dive into the ills of capitalism and how it's ruining everyone's lives. Pablo Escobar in a Celtics hat, right? So I think Henry tweeted, "Come for Pablo Escobar in a Celtics hat. Stay for how, the billions like really pretty much ruins our lives." And the connection here is always around how this is the money that's finding its way into the NBA, right? And what I love about the piece, Coach, is the way Henry describes the money as this living, breathing thing, right? These billions and the billions kind of like are a monster, right? And what does the monster want to do? Protect itself and keep eating, right? It doesn't want anybody to take anything from it, and it just wants to keep eating and eating, so it grows and grows and grows. So the billions, right, and the people who manage the billions have to get in bed with people who protect it, right? Politicians, heads of companies, financial regulators, et cetera, to make sure that, no, we got to keep this gravy train going. And when you really start to examine the tentacles of where all that money goes, and that's what Henry's piece is all about, it's not fascinating to me because it's something I've known. Again, I always say this, since I was a small child, I've known this, but it's crazy. And I always use that wire quote that Lester Freeman uses about following the money. And it's true. When you start following the money, the real money, not like these little piddly pennies, like real billions of dollars, and you see who it's connected to and where it's going, it's some scary shit.
Yeah, a couple of things on that. I was telling him today, one of his, he's got a lot of gifts. He's a talented person, but one of them is, I said, what you're doing is like me getting really nitty gritty, grainy into describing an NBA defensive possession and using terms you've never heard before. But instead of players' names like Steven Adams and Dennis Smith and names that Americans are comfortable with, I use nothing but Russian and Greek names. And I wasn't talking, I was writing, and you wouldn't even recognize the letters. It would be very hard to follow that. We're just speaking different languages and using a different language to begin with in terms of writing. That's what he's trying to do with this stuff that he's doing. It's just so complicated. And he said to me today, and I don't think you'll mind me saying this publicly, I hope not, that the hardest part about it is there's no protagonist in a sense. It's just this epic landscape. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I don't agree. I said, you're the hero of this because you're the reporter in the weeds connecting all these dots for us. And I don't know that he would ever want to agree to that because he's too humble, but it's the truth. Like, why is only Henry Abbott doing this? It's a scary answer, by the way.
Yes.
If you've known since you were a child, that's a long time. You're not a young guy anymore. I mean, you're not old by any stretch. Please don't be old because I'm Henry's the hero of this.
Yeah.
He's doing this for all of us. And if we want to, we all want to love the NBA, but we want to love all of the NBA. What we don't want to stop at management. Mm-hmm. I like many of the executives in the league. No one's perfect. We don't want to stop there. We love the owners too. And right now, that's in many cases, not most cases, it's a real challenge.
Yeah.
And Henry is showing us why.
Absolutely. I mean, to your point, Coach, we love this league and love the game. And it makes it hard for us to do that when we know about the shadowy figures coming in, right? Like the people who can afford to buy or invest in sports franchises is a small pool of people. And when you start looking into where the sources of money for these small group of people come from,
Yeah.
It ain't all from legal means, right? You cannot acquire that kind of money legally. It's just not, that's not how the world works, right? And is that the kind of money we want filtering into the NBA? No, probably not, right? Because they're using the league to sort of clean up their image. And that's bad for us overall as a whole in our product, right? And so it's something that just bears watching, and just, keep your eyes open, folks, and pay attention to everything happening with what kind of sponsorships and partnerships these new owners are getting into. The team that I cover, Brooklyn, I don't want to get into Joe Silake for fear of whoever's watching, listening to this podcast, but just pay attention to the engagements and the agreements they enter into.
Yeah.
All right, on the floor, Coach, it's disaster time in Los Angeles. Rip it up. It's crazy. I don't know what's happening. Russell Westbrook the other night had a quadruple double, and that is in the worst kind of way because he had 10 turnovers. They had a 26-point lead against the worst team in basketball. Oklahoma City, let's be real about this. They are actively tanking. Everyone knows that.
They're terrible.
They are not good at all. And I don't care if the Lakers didn't have LeBron James. A team with Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook and everybody else should be able to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. And they were up 26 points. But, they kind of let Russ do his thing, let Russ be Russ. And, Coach, the question I have for you is, we've seen this movie before. Russell Westbrook, for sure, great player, going to be a Hall of Famer, top 25, all that jazz. There's something about that let Russ be Russ thing that is an impediment to winning. And, we've seen it his entire career, right? It just, look, say whatever you want, and he won't say it unless you give him truth serum. That's the reason Kevin Durant left, right? Was like, I can't keep doing it with this dude, because in crunch time, when I need someone to make smart decisions, he often doesn't do that.
Jarod, don't you think that if LeBron was playing, he would just have the ball in his hands less, Westbrook, in terms of being that guy?
That's the idea. But I wonder if, because as you know, as you get older, carrying the ball up every possession, that just wears on you. So as part of it to let Russ do some of it, so LeBron is fresh come April. That's what we want. We need LeBron doing it 90% of the time in April, May, and June, not in December, January, February. But, you're right. He would probably do it more if he was on the floor now.
Maybe I was just wrong, because I really thought they'd win 52 games or whatever I had them for because of LeBron and AD. And I think they're missing Horton-Tucker didn't play.
Horton-Tucker. Ariza's out. Yep.
None is out.
None's out.
So those are two important pieces for them. I think that what's made Russell, for example, effective in Washington last year, if you remember when he kind of recovered from COVID fully, like they finished the season well. But by the way, they're still doing really good. They're 4-1 now. He made them more competitive. Talking about Joakim earlier, he brought that from all of them. But on a team with Anthony Davis, LeBron, you don't need that as much because they're the same way. Like when LeBron's at a game and not playing, he's very animated on the bench. Like it's his team as much as Frank Vogel is that way. And I mean that in a good way. And so that value is not as valuable for the Lakers with those two other guys. And I just don't think right now that roster without Nunn and Horton-Tucker can be the kind of defensive team that the identity the Lakers have relied on the last couple of years. It's going to be a work in progress. I didn't think it would be as slow as it has been. They're trying to figure out what to do offensively. When you're up 26, I don't remember I watched the game. I don't remember what point of the game it was when they were up 26. Was it second quarter or third quarter?
I think it was second quarter. If I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure. I forgot. But like that's as much an offensive failure as a defensive failure because of the 24-second clock. Like you're getting all the possessions they're getting by definition. If you got one, I got one. Give or take one. And you gotta, we used to play 1-on-1 to 100 when I was in college on a full court in the projects at Gainesville at high noon, super hot outside because they had a great water fountain right there. And so we were too dumb. No one had water bottles really back then. And if you did, it was Evian. None of them could afford Evian. So this was 1986, 85. So we would play to 25, get water, then switch baskets. One basket was like 1 inch shorter than the other. So to me, it was always a race to 50 because you're not going to stop me. I was shooting Steph Curry threes and all of that back in the day. We got up for 2s and 1s. It was a race to 50. It's the same thing in the NBA at some point. You're up 26. Like, you should be able to score enough, even if your defense melts down, especially if it's near halftime, and especially on that team. And they just don't have it right now. But I'm not quitting on them. I know you aren't either.
No.
Like, you can't ever doubt LeBron. If there's any player in my lifetime as an analyst that you just can't ever count out, to me, it's definitely him. He's done just too many phenomenal things. And I don't just mean individually. Like, what he did with those Cavs teams is extraordinary.
Incredible.
Extraordinary. So I ain't counting him out, but he is not young.
Well, that was my next question, right? He is probably the league's greatest problem solver and roster, unifier in the history of the game. But at 36 or however old he is, at some point that's going to stop. One of the things I like to say is everyone loves to talk about the $1 million a year plus he spends on his body. Here's how I look at that. All that does is slow the aging process. It can't stop it. You cannot actually stop the aging process.
It's like the vaccine with COVID.
Right.
It's not a force field.
Right.
It just helps things out a lot.
But I mean, look, this is his fourth. Every year he's been with the Lakers, he's had some kind of injury. Every single year. In Cleveland, this wasn't a thing. In Miami, this wasn't a thing. Obviously, now it's going to start. And we know what's the biggest predictor of future injury, previous injury. I'm not saying he's going to be injured all year, but when you start seeing these things happen, it's, you got to start thinking about, okay, what are we doing here? And looking at the Lakers, Anthony Davis being the best player that's why LeBron teamed up with him. All right, Anthony's younger. He's the guy, like, let him take over. But he's another one who leads the league in trips to the locker room, right? Like, I mean.
Oh, he went down. I think it was that game. He went down and he had a look on his face that made me think, oh, that dude's in pain. Turned out he was fine. It took a minute. But every time any NBA player falls down, I'm always looking at when do they put their hands up to be lifted up? Because if they don't do that, it means they ain't ready to stand up. And teammates read that body language pretty well, typically. I just kept thinking, please put your hands up, AD. Because the Lakers are going to be interesting to cover regardless with both LeBron and AD there, but only if they're healthy and playing. Yeah. And it's at risk. It definitely is at risk.
For sure. Coach, we had a prep player for the first time in the history of the world sign
America. History of
America. Sign a shoe deal, right? And not with some unknown Puma.
Who signed it? I didn't read it. I know someone did.
Who the agent was? I don't recall who the agent.
No. Who was the player?
Oh, Mikey Williams. Yeah.
Who is he? He's in high school right now?
He's in high school right now.
Do they think he's going to go to the overtime or the G League showcase?
If he's doing that, I'm assuming that's where he's going. He's going to either go to overtime elite or one of the
overtime is only. Was he a junior or a senior in high school?
Junior, I believe.
So he could do overtime elite next year because that's just a high school. Yeah, interesting. What do you think about it?
I'm excited. Look, I think one of the things about sports is, and it's the phrase they always use in sports, which is, this is how we always used to do things. And I hate that phrase. Well, guys, it ain't 1938 anymore. It's 2021. We don't do things that way anymore. Kids are realizing the universities, all these people make tons of money off of us. Why? What's wrong with me? If Puma wants to pay me millions of dollars to wear their shoes, why would I say no? Like, for what reason? No, think about like just the regular world, right? You're in high school and you're good at whatever. And some company says, we're going to pay you $400,000. Are you going to say no? Absolutely not. I don't care. Like, that's capitalism, right? The whole market that we all say is the greatest economic system in the world. Why are we not letting these kids participate in it? So I love it personally. I know why.
Yeah, because someone's got to pay for all the white guy sports.
Exactly.
Sports. That's the truth. And it's deeper and more sinister than that too. But yes, of course, if you invented a cool computer and you were 15, there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to get paid and still do whatever. I will say this: the argument the other side always has, but stuff like that is you're asking for a lot of trouble, because there's going to be all sorts of distractions that this 17-year-old mind now has to deal with. All of those things are true, but I'd rather deal with those with money in the bank because it's already hard to be a teenager. Like there's already plenty of distractions when you're especially a high-level athlete with recruiting and all the things that are going on. And we don't have a problem with it when it's women's gymnastics.
Correct.
Or men's gymnastics or whatever, or Hollywood. or a computer specialist. Like, why are we limiting him? So the reality is there needs to be baked into the system, which we'll never do, independent, smart mentors to any young person. And it should be this for anything. There's a reason why there's many Hollywood success stories when they were young who became disasters later. Money can really corrupt you,
for sure,
and also brings in the worst people in your life, and you don't know how to deal with that. So what we always made when I was first on this business, I always helped players hire a business manager. And basically we told the business manager, you say no to everything, everything. But at least the player doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that way he could just say, talk to my business manager, he's in charge, or she's in charge. And that's that. And no, straight on down the line, right? Run it by us or the agents or whatever. And in the rare case it is something interesting, but almost never it is.
Right.
And it's just too risky.
Yeah.
They need or give us all the money, give the player all the percentage of the ownership, because you're relying on his face to sell your product or service. Hey, this guy's got plenty of opportunities now. You hope that he's grounded enough at home to know that it goes away fast if you don't keep playing well.
Exactly.
That's it's like anything else. I mean, there's been some teenage Olympic swimming champions.
Sure, tons.
They're not making as much money as this guy might in basketball, but they're making something. And dealing with fame and success, they got to get back in the pool at 6:00 every morning, go to work.
Correct. Keep the main thing, as they say, right? That's the reason why you were able to get this, was the thing that you dedicated your life to. So keep that as your focus. Transitioning to someone having some issues getting paid. The Phoenix Suns and DeAndre Ayton, obviously he has not been extended. The money that they offered was not something that the years was not what he wanted. And you thought that Coach Monty Williams said something interesting. And you want to talk about that, and then we can get into how I feel about not paying someone like DeAndre Ayton. Yeah.
So I mean, if you could pick someone to be your grandfather, Dwayne Casey would be interesting. Alvin Gentry. These are really intelligent, sweet. They've seen everything. Dwayne Casey, if you know his story, he's seen it all. We had him on bringing in actually a couple years right at the beginning of the pandemic. Monty Williams has experienced it all, and not all good. And I'm probably more like you. I'm not a big fan of religion. He is, but religion that makes men like that, I'm all for. Whatever inspires you and motivates you to be that kind of man or woman, I'm all for it. He was asked, I think my buddy Sam Amick, I think is the one who interviewed him. He was asked about, do you think DeAndre not signing the deal is going to cause problems? And his quote, you know what? I'd rather you read it because your voice is better. Here's his answer to that.
All right. Yeah, I don't believe that there will be, because you still get to play ball. We all still get paid. For me, and I can't speak for anybody else, my goal is to help guys win and get paid.
I really like that coach's mentality. That's real. We want to have this Pollyanna view of it's all about winning and losing. Yeah, to get paid. This is not rec league or AAU or even high school. This is the world's best league, and they want to get paid. And this is how coaches really talk. And I love that Monty said it publicly. They normally don't. I don't think Ayton's playing great. His effort's good. They're disappointing right now.
They are.
And Chris Paul looks really mortal. It's probably more of a Chris Paul story than a DeAndre Ayton story anyway. But it's something to watch. I had Phoenix as my best team, second best team in the West. Maybe best team behind Utah. I don't really remember. They're right there. And so far it's not happening. But if anyone can steer them through, I think the hangover of making the finals and then the Olympic team for Devin, I think it's Monty. But your point you're going to make now about Ayton rings true with what's happening right now, I suspect.
Yeah. So the one thing I'll say is I agree with you. Phoenix is who I had behind Utah in the Western Conference, but they are starting off season slow. And I think with the news that came out about Sarver, the potential story that was going to come out that still hasn't come out yet, and with Ayton not getting paid, I think to your point, Monty Williams is the perfect coach to have in this scenario. Because if they had any other kind of guy who maybe does not have that kind of pulse and temperament, things could get off the rails real quick here. I mean, when a locker room starts getting fractured and things going, but Monty's, I think, just the right kind of guy to keep everybody believing, buying in, and together. The thing about young guys, coach, and you know this, and this is my thing about Ayton, it's the disrespect card, right? And like that's how they're gonna feel because Ayton looks at it like, look, in that draft with Luka and everybody else, I was a number one pick. You guys picked me one for a reason. And again, you ask the Phoenix Suns, would they rather have Luka or whatever? They feel good about having DeAndre Ayton as their guy. When they brought Paul in, they asked him, look, we know you want to score more, but we really need you to just be the defensive guy, rim running and all that, and let the offense run through Chris and Devin Booker. Yeah. Ayton said, cool. And guess what? It worked. They were up 2-0 in the NBA Finals against the Milwaukee Bucks. All right. But now when it's time for him to get his years, and that, from what I understand, it's the years weren't offered the way that they wanted it.
He wanted 5, they offered 4.
Right. And, you know, when you tell a guy we'll take care of you and you don't from whatever that standpoint, that's going to have them feeling some kind of way, particularly when they're younger, right? Because remember, this is his first big contract. This is the rookie extension. Yeah. So he's going to feel a certain kind of way about that. Now, again, I think having Monty there is big. Having Chris's leadership there is big. In any other environment, I feel like it could be volatile and could turn bad. But I think because of the people in charge between Monty and Chris, I think it'll be okay.
I agree. But Monty's not, you know, he's not everything. He's not a miracle worker.
No,
he'll do his best. And if as you was saying, if the train gets off the track a little bit, Chris Paul is not the player he was, certainly not right now. Devin Booker is kind of angry at the world the way he plays, which I love, but that isn't the best uniter. Speaking of that, I didn't put this in here. Did you read the GQ article about Udonis?
I did not. It's been filed on my tabs to read.
It's going to go down as one of your favorite all-time articles.
Okay.
And so my point is, Udonis he can almost be a bully to unite and create a culture, especially on Pat Riley's team, who is a brawler also. Because UD talked about putting his hands on some people. Like, I believe it. It works in Miami. Devin Booker can't do that.
Right.
He's a better player than Udonis ever was. He can't use that kind of force to get everyone in tow. So it's got to be Monty's love. I think it's got to be Monty's love. And Ayton needs to understand that it's costing himself money. He ain't going to get a 5-year max deal in restricted free agency if he doesn't play better. I think he understands that. I'm sure his agent's pushing that. Easier said than done if he's disappointed. But it's a long year, and we're still in October.
Yeah.
It used to be, I follow my Facebook memories just every day to kind of see what life was like 10 years ago, whatever. And these last couple of days, it's always been a different opening night. I remember opening night being on Halloween. I remember pouring a drink on Halloween. I did all the candy. My neighbor used to be in my old neighborhood. Hundreds of kids would come in. They would literally come in vans. I'm not even joking. Moms would drop them off because our neighborhood went crazy for Halloween. And I would do my duty outside. And I would tell my wife at 8:00, I'm inside watching NBA. I make a cocktail because when you have young twins, you need a drink. Because I quit drinking for a long time. And I'd watch the NBA. Well, now we're still in October. We're 5 games in.
Yeah.
It's still a long way to go. So
it is.
Ayton can get around, but Monty's got his work to do. That team has high expectations. It's way different when there's a target on your chest.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's well said. You know, we always talk about, coach, politics and sports being intertwined and how, you know, certain people on the right love to say, get my politics out of sports. And we're like, you wanted to use it conveniently when it works for you. The NAACP recently has called on athletes who are considering signing letters of intent with colleges in Texas to not do that because of obviously all the horrendous legislation passed in Texas recently by Governor Abbott. And I know this is something that speaks to you because you work with young athletes who are considering going to college or what have you. So what are your thoughts about the NAACP making this move?
So we need to empower young athletes the way the WNBA athletes and LeBron, in a sense, have understood leverage, and George Hill when the Bucks sat out of the game in protest after the shooting Jacob Blake and Kenosha. We need a lot more of that, in my opinion. And so, to me, I want to have like WNBA say the same thing about playing in any state that has any restrictive abortion rights, and this has happened. This is both with Trump on the federal level and at some state levels. The softening or the easing of laws and regulations regarding things like sexual assault on a college campus and reporting of that and so forth. There's lots of things happening. I have a daughter in college. Like, that's a big deal for me, as you can quite imagine. I'd like to see our athletes just just come out and say, don't you fucking dare play. I mean, I went to Florida. My son's at Florida State. I don't know how they're getting any players. Well, it's a little different with what the NAACP is doing. Florida's probably not as guilty and egregiously as Texas is. So whatever, pick your spots. And if you want to hurt, and this is the biggest point, if you want to hurt colleges, well, then just help them lose. Because the money starts drying up. No one goes to the games. The donors don't donate. I've been in rooms, Jarod, where the people sign the checks to get the new coach hired.
Yeah.
I've been right there. I've had the millionaires and the billionaires literally I had Archie Griffin tell me how he was the head fundraiser at Ohio State. He might still be that. I don't do it anymore. But I've had lunches and dinners with Archie Griffin, former two-time Heisman Trophy winner, telling me how he got those dudes to write those checks. And there's a reason why the face of Ohio State football, Archie Griffin, who at a time was the only ever two-time Heisman winner, right? Still might be, actually.
I think he is, yeah.
I'm not sure I know it's won or twice. There's a reason why he was in charge of the fundraising. It wasn't just some rich dude or some accountant or whatever. It was Archie Griffin. Well, if the football team's losing, his job is much harder, right? In some schools, it's the basketball team. So we need our pros to let that trickle down to these high school kids who are making these decisions to continue to sign with schools when those same top donors are the ones supporting the exact opposite that as an athlete you should want. And you've got leverage with that, because I promise you this, if Texas started losing football players, getting decommitments because they signed early, now the new ones in February, the new signing date, if people started getting out of their contracts or not signing their national letter of intents in February, the laws would change, guaranteed.
For sure.
Because those fundraisers would go to the politicians that are in their pockets and they would say, get these things off the books or my football team's going to lose a lot of games and it's embarrassing. I want to enjoy my Saturdays anymore. That's a fact.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And as an aside, you mentioned something, Coach, about college campuses and sexual assault and what goes on there.
Yeah.
Look, the first privilege in the world is male privilege, right? Like, I want to be very, very clear about that. What goes on, and not just in Texas, the process for women to report any type of sexual assault or rape on college campuses in America is disgraceful. Like, it is horrendous in terms of not feeling safe, in terms of how things are followed up. It is just bad all around. And it's not about like you've got daughters, wives, whatever. Like, if you're a human being and you want things to be like decent, as Coach says, it's not hard to be a decent human, right? Like, these are things that should not be going on. So everyone needs to do better and pay attention to what goes on in college campuses all across this country. Shameful shit. All right. Basketball, Coach, the new foul rules are the talk of the town. Trae Young came out the other day and said, look, like, there's some things I know that, yeah, they're not calling anymore on me. I get that, but I'm still driving the lane and getting hit, and they're not calling that. And I feel like James Harden had said that a couple of days ago. More and more guys are coming out and saying that, look, we know that this is better for the flow of the game, and fine, we'll adjust to that. But we're getting hit at the rim, and you're not calling those. And it's funny because, Judy, if you can pull up that tweet, there's an infographic that shows the percentage of fouls drawn on jump shooters and what's changed over the past year to year, like, right? So this time last year to now. And it was interesting, right? Because most of the high volume guys are seeing, right, a drop in shooting fouls drawn, right? Bradley Beal, 7%, Jimmy Butler, Trae Young, LeBron, BI, Russ, James, Donovan Mitchell. Like, it's just anyone who's high volume is sort of seeing a drop in the amount of fouls drawn. Now, I think, as we said last time, Coach, it'll course correct, right? Over the course of the season, the refs, I think they're so keenly intent on it early that it's every time now. By the time we're 25 games in, some kind of rhythm is going to develop one way or the other. When you're watching the games, what are you seeing in terms of players draw and their ability to draw fouls?
I think that for a number of years now, the league at the highest levels has said, we want to make the game cleaner. Unlike Europe, which is a very, very physical game because of how the referees call the game. The referees decide all of that. It's not the players, it's the refs. Assuming you're recruiting as an NBA team, physical, athletic, competitive dudes, which of course we're assuming that. And then the byproduct of that, because of the competitiveness, is more free throws because they're competing more. And so now they've kind of changed the dial a little bit, and they made some rules. This is what I think. They made some rules that are very obvious to lower the amount of fouls taken. But I also think there's an underlying current of, let's just scale it back, our whistle, a little bit, and see if we can't get a more fluid game, better flow for the game. And so they've got to tweak those dials, because what I'm seeing, and I didn't talk to you about this yet, the Brooklyn-Miami game.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the most physical regular season game I can remember in a long time.
Extremely physical.
It looked like a playoff game.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
at least the Heat were playing like a playoff game. The Nets certainly weren't.
Right. Yeah, exactly. One team showed up for the playoffs, one did for preseason. It's true. But I liked, Miami brought all the force to that. Miami played with force. Miami plays with force typically. And in years past, it's been a little more penalized than it was in that game. And this year in general, it looks like. And so the reason why I think the NBA made this change is because of the stoppage of workflow. That, yes, it was a cleaner game. If you had touched a guy more than just a light love tap, we were calling a foul. So we cleaned up some of that. But the cost of the tax of that was more free throws, slower game, blah, blah, blah. So as they've changed that dial a little bit, now we're getting less fouls, more flow, but also a lot more contact. And that's something that the players haven't adjusted to fully yet, that you're just going to get hit sometimes more than you used to. And I think it's more like the postseason, although the postseason was never that dramatically different. Right. It was different. And I think that, for example, the double pumping and throwing your arms out, no, you're not going to get rewarded for that.
Yeah.
You got to go up strong. And if they block it, they block it. If they foul you, they foul you. They may call it, they may not. I think there's going to be an adjustment a little bit, but I do think we've entered a new world of a little more contact is going to be allowed, which means the Ja Morants of the world that are skinny have got to build as much lean strength. I don't think gain weight. Right. I think it's bad for their skeletons, but more lean strength and play through contact more.
Yes.
That's where I think. That's what I think is going to happen over the next couple of years, because they're already at least for this free throws. And I think fans will like that more. I think also fans like a little violence. Unfortunately, I don't. I teach my guys just don't foul.
Right.
But it happens when you're competitive, and these athletes are amazing. So I think that's where we're going. Do you see the same thing?
I do see the same thing, because what it is for sure is the flow of the game is better, right? It's just, and you're not getting that. So that crafty move that a veteran does, and James Harden's the master of this, he's left-handed, pulling the ball back from my right side to left and getting my arm up under your arm, right? So it looks like you're hacking down on me. They're not calling that, right? They're like, no, you're swinging the ball over to the other side and you're getting up underneath. We're going to let that go through, right? And that's causing miss, breakout, run on the other side, right? So the game is much more free-flowing, to your point. And for a team like Miami, just in general, you said they play the force, the rule changes are going to be beneficial for them, because they're like, well, we already play this way, so this is great for us, right? Like, you don't call fouls? Perfect.
That's why you have to read the GQ article on Udonis, because I read it as I was watching this bloodbath in Miami and thinking just what you said, Jarod, just now, which is, oh, wait, we can do this now?
Great. We're going to do it anyway, but now we don't get fouled for it? Cool. Yeah. Great. I'm in.
Yeah. It's funny. The farther down you go in levels, the more physical the game tends to be, because referees just want to get out of the gym. So when I was a high school coach, I mean, it wasn't no blood, no foul, but it wasn't far from that typically. And for people like me that was in the business to inspire, oh yeah, we were cooking people, baby. My rule was, if they elbow you in the head, well, we're going to have to elbow in the head. Just make sure the ref isn't looking. I don't want anyone ejected. I was wrong for this. I was 22 years old, but you were not going to lay your hands on us and think that you could do it again. And then as I got better, I realized we're going to walk in the gym giving off the impression of, you do not want to fuck with us. And we played that way. Within the rules, by no means we were never doing anything cheap. We were definitely professional, but we were going to lay our hands on you for sure. You were going to feel us. I would say those words, make them feel us.
Yeah.
That's about playing with force.
Yes. Yes.
But as you go up in college, it was a little less than high school, but it's still very physical. And then when you used to get to the NBA these last 10 years, it really was very, very different.
Yes.
And now that little tweak, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Brandon Ingram just better be prepared to get fouled more, go up stronger.
Yeah, it's everyone knows the story about the '80s playoffs and early '90s when Jordan run into the Pistons, and the Pistons' mission was make that dude feel it every time he comes into, like, I don't care if he scores or not, he's going to end up on the floor. Did that, right? They couldn't get past. He spent all off season bulking himself up and getting stronger to handle the physicality. All right, like, this is what you got to do. As the game evolves, as a player, you have to evolve your body and your game so that you meet the challenges in front of you. I want to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves, coach, because, you know, they're one of the original dumpster fire teams.
Yeah.
But so far, they're looking kind of nice. And Anthony Edwards is a revelation. And Judy, I want to play that clip of Anthony Edwards talking about guarding Giannis Antetokounmpo. This is just brilliant.
He is something.
He's just a joy.
Quite athletic.
He gets it. He just gets it.
Yeah, I mean, with a guy like that, you can't stress about him scoring. Like, that's what he gonna do. I mean, motherfucker Sam 280 pounds. Like, ain't nothing you can do about it. Like, shit, we put 4 people on him. He still scored the ball. Like, I was telling Leo today, I was like, because we played Giannis last year. I'm like, bro, I ain't never seen nothing like it. Like, you can put 4 people on him. He might miss it, jump right back up, dunk that bitch. I mean, like, it's nothing you can do about it. So him scoring the ball it doesn't amaze none of us. We like, this is what he do. You know what I'm saying? But I can't even say we contained him. He still went for 40. Like, the game plan was to not let him beat us, and we came out victorious. But he still went for 40. I mean, he's amazing, man. There's nothing I can say about Giannis. He's unstoppable. I don't know what to say. Yeah, I mean, with a guy.
I love Anthony Edwards because he's just so raw and real. And when you're someone like me and us, when you do content creation right around the NBA, these people are the best because there's no filter. Look, the other day during media week when I was for Brooklyn, everyone's asking all these, about the year, what are you going to do offensively? I don't ask any of those questions because to Durant, Harden, whatever, they're going to give me the classic cliche player answer that I've heard 1,000 times in their career. I don't want to hear that. I'm asking about who's playing what music in the locker room, whatever. And this one reporter asked me, why do you keep asking these questions? I go, notice how everyone's laughing and you're getting better answers than the questions you're asking. Like, I want people who are going to let their guard down and be real. So when it comes to basketball, I'm loving Anthony Edwards and the question and the way he talks. And I mean, he's describing Giannis, which everything he said was true, right? Like, I don't know, like, he's huge. We do whatever. He's probably going to score anyway. But he gets it, coach. Like, he knows that I'm here to compete. I'm here to work, but also this is fun. And I'm just going to be who I am, myself, when you ask me a question and tell me things. And I hope that part of him never goes away.
But it probably will.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah. So that's the thing. This last week, a friend of mine on Facebook who I went to college with, but we never talk ever. He sent me a couple of pictures. I don't know where he got them from. They were me and my 2 best friends in college, two of my best friends playing pickup just afterwards in what's called Alligator Alley, which is, there's no alligators. It's the old Florida gym till they built the more new arena that they're still in now. And we'd play pickup there. I mean, I did it as much as I possibly could when I was a student. And I'm looking at my 20-year-old self that I've never seen these pictures before and no idea why someone bring a camera into the gym and we're poured with, soaking wet. One of the pictures I'm wiping my face, can't even see it was me, but I know it's me. And I'm just thinking, I sent it to one of the guys in the picture who I just love so much as a teammate, as a former college friend and roommate. And he said to me, "You look 12 years old," which I do. But it was a picture, not a video, because I can only imagine how fucking stupid I was at 20. I was stupid. These guys who are the best basketball players in the world are interviewed all the time. And listen, he sounds like a 20-year-old. And that's what you love about him. He's fresh and honest and vulnerable. And Giannis, he was playing Giannis, I'm certain of it, on NBA 2K just 3 years ago. And I think he thought maybe I'll get there because Anthony Edwards was a very famous 17-year-old, but you never know. That's why these guys react the way they do when they get drafted top 5, whatever. And they know they're going in many cases. Anthony Edwards knew he was 1 or 2. He knew he was him or Wiseman or LaMelo, I guess, 1 and 2. And they're still excited because they dream of it. Scotty Barnes posted something the other day. It was just a picture of him on the court. And he wrote, like, I've been dreaming of this for so long. But we know they get deep down about it.
Yeah.
And they start talking like Tim Duncan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they protect themselves. That's what you love.
And I love Tim, but it's like, as an interview, it's like, oh God, please just kill me with the boringness. Quick thing about Minnesota and Anthony Edwards, coach. Also, what I like about him is like he's a competitor, and as guys say, he's an MFer and wants to win. They played a game against the Pelicans the day before that Milwaukee game when they got beat, and Anthony Edwards came out in the game and said, we came out here thinking, oh, look, it's the Pelicans, we'll win them because they're not very good, and we got our asses kicked. Like, we got to be better. And I know there's no moral victories in sports or anything like that, but I said to myself, I was like, they got a game against the defending champs the next night, second night of a back-to-back. I was like, if they lay an egg and get blown out, then to me, it's same old Timberwolves. They just are what they are, whatever. It's like, if they keep it close, I was like, all right, this is showing me something. They did more than keep it close. They won the damn game and played really well and competed. Look, it's only 5 games in, but I think that's a sign, right? Like, having a guy like that who wants to win. We talk about how competitiveness and competing is a skill. Like, I like that. And then seeing him up close a few times as I have, I love that about him. So hopefully the Timberwolves have a building block besides Karl-Anthony Towns that they can go to.
Yeah, I agree.
Really quick before we get to our Power Fives, I want to talk about your post this week about Ja Morant. Last week I said, I think he'd be better than Allen Iverson because he could be a better shooter. And you wrote and you said, Allen Iverson with a 3. That's who Ja Morant is.
Yeah. I told you, someone else said Iverson, Kevin Johnson, who was a guy I really loved. Yeah, I mean, he is Allen Iverson. He's a little taller, a little longer, but last night he took it to Golden State, 23 in the second half. I'm glad because I think he's a definite all-star, Jarod, for years to come.
Yeah.
And good enough to be an MVP. They got to get better. We need our guy JJJ to be better.
Yep.
They need that second guy. They're good though. They got a lot of good players on the team. Desmond Bane's really good. They got a lot of good players. But he is, to me, he's the most exciting player in the league that isn't Anthony Edwards, who is so powerfully built. He's like a running back. I think Ja is the most exciting guy. All right, let's get to our top 5.
He's fantastic. I'm loving what I'm seeing. Front runner for MVP right now after 1 week. All right. Top 5, our power rankings. You go, I go. We'll go back and forth. Who is number 5 on your list?
The easiest one of no, I didn't really do it that way.
All right, so then do whatever order you want.
Okay, no, I can do it your way. Number 5 on my list, I'm going with Ja Morant. They beat Golden State. It was undefeated. They play the 12th toughest schedule, and they've got a winning record. And right now, they're playing like a top 4 seed in the West. So I'm gonna go with Memphis.
We are eye to eye on that. I got Memphis as my number 5. 4 for me, even though they are only 1 game above 500. I'm sorry, no. 4 for me is the New York Knicks. Hey man, look, they beat Chicago. The Knicks. One thing the Knicks do is play hard. Shout out to Randy. I know he's happy about that. Knicks are my number 4 team. Who's 4 for you?
Number 4 for me are your Cleveland Cavaliers. They've got 2 road wins. Denver and the Clippers. I think they play the 10th toughest schedule in the league and have a winning record. I don't know how long it's going to last. Evan Mobley is going to be a terrific player. So is Jarrett Allen. Markkanen's not even doing great. Garland just came back. Sexton's really scoring. Again, this is the last time we might mention Cleveland all year. We might mention Mobley, but for right now, they're number 4 for me.
4 for me is the Miami Heat. I mean, look, they're the Heat. I mean, they play every regular season game like it's the playoffs. That's their jam. Now, I worry about them come playoff time because they grind so much in the regular season, but look, is what it is. Miami Heat.
All right, number 3, I've got the Milwaukee Bucks, who play the 8th toughest schedule. And they're 3-2, and Holiday was at one of those games. So 3-1 with their, one of their 3 best players, with the biggest target of all on their backs because of Giannis and the Bucks and the champions. And so they, a lot of these teams that are ranked higher, the next 2 teams have played easy schedules. So I give Milwaukee credit for doing it a top 10 schedule.
The Bucks are my next team, my 2 team, defending champs. They're doing what they do. Milwaukee.
Yeah, I've got your Miami at 3. I've got them at 2.
Okay.
But they play the 29th easiest schedule. Still, you got to beat the teams you play.
Yep.
And they're beating them. They have a great net rating. It's early. They're playing with force. They're probably leading the league in force, I would say. And so they're my number 2.
And my number 1 team, who I picked beginning of the season to come out of the Western Conference and go to the NBA Finals, the only undefeated team left, the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, me too. And you know where their strength of schedule is? 30th. They play the easiest schedule in the league, but they're demolishing teams. Listen, they demolished teams last year.
Yeah.
I still have questions about their bench. We'll see. But against the easiest schedule in the league, no surprise that they're killing everyone. They're loaded. This coming week, there's some good games coming. I think with some of these teams that are top 10 playing against each other, it should be better.
I agree. And look, that's a recipe for, by the way, being very good in the NBA. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat and go 500 against everybody else. And you're probably going to have a good record.
That's right.
So,
blow those bad teams out. That's what they're doing. They did the same thing last year.
Anyway, folks, that has been another rousing episode of Bring It In. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy your Halloween. If you're doing such things, be safe out there. Don't have too much candy.